Well, good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Richard Cruz, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is leading aircraftsman Josh Leonard. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. And during this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you're able, I invite you to please stand for the National Anthem. If you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's first World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Lieutenant Wilfred Norman Beaver. Wilfred Beaver was born on the 11th of May 1882 to Albert and Evelyn Beaver of Melbourne. His father, remembered as a courteous man, was a manager for Folk Jewellery Merchants. His grandfather, Israel Bloomington, was one of the founders of the St Kilda Synagogue, and Wilfred grew up in Melbourne's Jewish community. Wilfred Beaver was educated at Scott College and then went to the University of Melbourne to obtain a law degree. After his graduation, he joined the Commonwealth Public Service and went to Port Moresby as a magistrate. Wilfred Beaver became the resident magistrate of the Western Division of Papua and lived in Port Moresby for more than a decade. He was keenly interested in local customs and became a Fellow of the Royal Geographical Society after publishing a number of articles in conjunction with the government and anthropologist Ernest Chinnery. From 1905, he served as commissioned officer in the Armed Constabulary in Papua. He also had previous military experience within the Victorian Field Artillery. In early 1914, Wilfred Beaver returned to Australia on leave, but had returned to Papua before the outbreak of war in August. He was selected by the government of Papua to take command of the Armed Constabulary on the border between the Australian-governed and German-governed parts of Papua. It was later reported that he became the first British soldier to enter German territory as a result. He remained there till he was offered a provisional commissioned rank in the Royal Australian Imperial Force in December 1915. He returned to Australia to undertake officer training at Duntroon and was confirmed as second lieutenant in March 1916. Beaver spent several months at Broadmeadows Camp in Victoria before leaving for active service overseas in August 1916 with reinforcements to the 60th Battalion. The 60th Battalion had been virtually wiped out at the Battle of Fromelles in July and was still rebuilding when Beaver arrived. Although the battalion saw little further offensive action that year, as winter closed in towards the end of 1916, the battalion rotated in and out of the front line. After months of living in cold outdoor conditions, Second Lieutenant Wilfred Beaver fell ill with what described as general debility. In fact, he had suffered a relapse of the malaria he contracted in Papua a decade before. He was sent to hospital and later to training camps in England to ensure his recovery. While training in Salisbury Plain in early 1917, Beaver was promoted to full lieutenant. He rejoined his battalion on the battlefields of the Western Front in June. On the 26th of September 1917, the 60th Battalion took part in the successful Battle of Polygon Wood near Ypres in Belgium. In the early stages of the attack, Lieutenant Beaver was advancing in the open when he was struck in the stomach by a rifle bullet. He was with Sergeant Major Smith, who was forced to leave him behind to carry on with the attack. Smith reported that Beaver had died, and because shells were falling like hail at this point, his body had probably been buried. In fact, Beaver had somehow survived the gunshot wound to his abdomen and was taken to nearby casualty clearing station. He died there shortly after arrival. He was later mentioned in 1st Anzac Corps routine orders in which the Corps Commander, Lieutenant General Sir William Birdwood, expressed appreciation of gallant service rendered by Beaver during recent operations. Today, Lieutenant Beaver is buried in the Lee St Hoke Military Cemetery. He was 35 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed just beside the pool of reflection. This is one but many of the stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lieutenant Wilfred Norman Beaver, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes this evening's last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.